So we are continuing on chapter 6 of Big Java, and we are moving on to nested loops. So we're going to have loops inside loops. So this can be a good way of doing tables. We're going to have loops inside loops. So the pseudocode, remember, is going to be more of an English standard coding. So what we want to do is we want to print the header. This is what we want to print, okay? So we're going to print the header, and then we want to print for x from 1 to 10, we want to print rows. So we're going to be printing each row. And of course, for each row, we have to print each column. So the first one is going to each row, and inside of that, to be able to print each row, I have to print each column. In this case is x to the power of n. So you can simplify this by thinking about the clock. So for every hour in the clock, we go 60 minutes. Then we go to the next hour, we go another 60 minutes. We go to the next hour, we go another 60 minutes. So we have some loop inside another loop. This is going to be the flow chart for those people who like to think about it a little more into the flow chart. So we get the x equal 1, x less than or equal 10, that's true, n is 1, and then if n is less than or equal 4, remember we're going to do only 4 numbers, we don't want to do a lot more than that. We're going to do print x to the power of n, we're adding 1 to n, and then we come back here, we keep doing these things till n is 4, and then we're going to come down, we're going to print a new line and x plus plus, and then we're going to go back up and we're going to do this thing. So we have a big loop right here that's going to be printing all rows, and then we have a small loop over here that's going to be printing all columns. This is the power table example in your book. You can try it by yourself if you want to. And some of the key point is we have the maximum for our columns, maximum for the rows. Sometimes I just call them row and column so I don't confuse myself. So the first one is doing my rows. The second one is doing my columns. So in this case, I am going to be printing my header first. So let's go through that. So we're going to print the header first. So to do print a header, we're just going to do, for the columns, we're just going to write our n, and then we're going to do our x. So it's going to be x to the power of n. That's the way we're going to be doing our header. And then we want to do the table body. So in the body, we have the rows and columns. So we're going to do the rows first, and inside of each row, we're going to do a column. Row, column, row, column. And that's going to print out. Okay, let's look at this example, 2 examples, and see. Of course, we have some more coming up after this, but we just want to look at this. So we have 1, 2, 3, and I++. Remember, for me to understand these things, I am thinking about this for my row, and I am thinking about this one for my column. I might even call them that so I don't confuse myself. So this is going to be row. So it's starting with 1, and it goes less than or equal 3. I'm more comfortable to say start with 0 less than 3. Then my column is starting at 1 less than or equal 4. So how many do we have? We have 3 rows, 4 columns. So in our columns, we are printing a star. Every time we're done with the column, we're going to go to the next line. So this is the way we're going to go to the next row. Remember, this is a row. So we start with 1. We're going to process these 4 columns, and then we go to the next line. Then my row becomes 2. Then my row becomes 3. And we're going to stop. So this is what's going to happen. We have 3 rows, and each row has 4 stars. Now let's look at this one. Now I have what? I have 4 rows, 3 columns, and I'm printing a star. So what do you think is going to come out of it? Now let's make this a little more interesting. So I have 4 rows, and in this case, I am going my column from the beginning to the row. So if my row is 1, I'm going to go to 1. If my row is 2, I'm going to go to 2. If my row is 3, I'm going to go to 3. So that's what we're going to get. In this case, I have 3 rows and I have 5 columns. Now I am checking for %2. Remember, the percent is going to give you the remainder. So if I get a number, integer, and divide it by 2, and my remainder is 0, that means what? That's the even number. So if I have 2, 4, 6, or whatever even number, I divide it by 2, I don't have no remainder. So that's the way we're going to check for even numbers. So what we're saying here, if J is even number, we're going to print a star. Otherwise, we're going to print minus or underscore. So that's what we're going to get. For the odd numbers, we are printing the underscore. For even number, we are printing the star. Okay, let's look at this one. So I have for I equal 1, I less than equal 3, I plus plus. That's my row. So I have 3 rows over here. I have 5 columns. Now we're making it a little different. We are adding I plus J %2. So if their sum is even, we're going to print a star. Otherwise, we're going to print space. This is the way we're creating the check. Some of these things you might think about it, or you just want to put it in your IDE and play with it and come up with the different shapes and those things. So you can do that. Some of them you just say, okay, you have seen the algorithm one time or multiple times, so you know how to do checkboard now. You just go and use this algorithm. Okay, doke. So we get to the subjects for this section. Again, put a pause on it and do it by hand. And let's see how far we can go with this. And if you have to go back and check things up, then we can do it. Why is there a statement system that in outer loop, but not in the inner loop? That's something to think about it. We are talking about, okay, so we are talking about how we were printing the exponent, and then we had a println after the inner loop. And it says, why don't you have it inside? What's going to happen if you put it inside? How would you change the program to display all powers from 0 to 5? So we were doing 1 to 3. Now what about if we do it 0 to 5? If you make the change in the previous one, how many values are displayed? What do the following loops display? So we have I0, I less than 3, I plus plus. This is what I'm accustomed to. This is what I'm used to. This is the way I do it. So I start with 0, I go less than 3. How many is that? That's also 3. Then we go from 0 to less than 4. That's going to give me 4 numbers. And then we're going to print this one. And then we're going to do this println after this inner one. So this is my row, this is my column. So I do for each row, I'm going to do my columns, and then I do a println, and I go back up, I update my row, I go to the next row, and then I do these columns, and I do a next line again. How do you print this? Shouldn't be too hard to do it, but you might want to think about it a little bit. Again, put it on a pause, think about it. And that should end this part.